Hi, I'm Francois from Production Music Live today with producer notes, and we're taking a look at the Afro House styles of MAZ and Antdot, two producers from Brazil. They run the label Dawn Patrol, and this one here is modeled after a track of them called Run. And we have a reverse engineered project file here with different chords and melodies, and we are using Ableton stock effects and instruments only, plus Serum to sort of reverse engineer this sound. Let's quickly take an overview of the arrangement, and then we're going through some of the key elements here one by one. So we have an intro part in the beginning. And then we're bringing in kicks and pianos. And then stuff builds up, and then we're bringing in the bass line after, well, 1 minute and 30 seconds. So you're definitely getting enough time to sort of mix that into your DJ set. These sounds are taken from the complete Afro House Start to Finish pack that we've just released with PML. It contains samples, online courses, a full album of project files that you can dissect and learn from, produced in Ableton only, plus Serum presets and MIDIs as well. Check the link in the description for that one. In bar 65, we bring in more groove elements. And then after 3 minutes, around 3 minutes, we are getting into this break. So this is definitely a club mix here. Ableton piano used here in this project file. You can also put the Labs piano or whatever you have at home. And then we're slowly building it up to the pre-break. And then we use these Conga Fills to introduce our drop here. Super nice. We recorded a whole bunch of Afro House vocals because this is one of the most important elements for the vibe, for the feel. And so we were like, okay, it's difficult to find some good ones. So we went and recorded a bunch of different singers and recorded Afro House vocals. You can find those in the complete Afro House Start to Finish as well. Yeah. You always get it wet, and also you get dry versions in a separate folder of these. And so on. Feel free to check out the links in the description and check out the playbacks on the website. After that, we have the second part here. Basically winding down the track, and you can also see, if you quickly look at the MIDI of our grand piano, it sort of builds up here towards the drop, starts playing higher and higher, more climactic notes, and then it starts to build back down. And at the end, we just have our outro to mix in the next track. So 7 and a bit long, 7.5 minutes long. And let's take a closer look at some of the key elements after quickly checking the groups. Kick and bass. Group sounds like this. So kick, tom, and bass line. And then the drums group sounds like this. Synths group. Pianos. Effects group. Sweeps, effects, transitions, reverses, and then the vocals group. And one of these shots here. Okay, so let's take a look at the key elements one by one here, copying over the kicks and bass to this loop section here so we can take a brief look into them. Let's play the kick. Clean, not too long one, 200 milliseconds long. And then we are playing with the toms already, 808s here. Nice and short and snappy. This one is rolled off in the low end and sidechained to our sidechain. And then on top of that, we are playing our sustained bass line. So E, F sharp, G sharp, and D sharp, and back again to E. So 3 chords, kind of, well, let's say 4 chords here. It's the reduced chord progression is fairly simple. It's E major, F sharp major, and G minor. And even if we don't land on this a lot, this might be the key of our track. We will check that in a second when looking at the pianos. But these are our low-end elements here. Let's quickly take a look at the Serum sound source. So we have the Juno waveform here, and we have the square saw, more square-ish, and both have one voice. And it's fairly simple in this setup. We just run it through 24 decibels per octave low-pass filter. And the drive is up a little bit here. And then we have a bit of cleanup EQ going on here, and maybe more importantly, a little bit of distortion on the sound. But fairly simple sound, not making it too complicated. And now we can already start looking at what kinds of elements are super typical if we look at the drums. And you kind of want to sort of look at something like bells in this type of genre in Afro House. And you can see we have these bells here. It's a marimba actually. And it plays different things in different parts of the track. It also plays this here in the second part, in the wind down. So it basically goes the octave down. Or what is that? That's not the octave, that's the fifth. But in our main part, it just plays down here in G sharp, and that is already an indicator that we might be in this key. But let me quickly copy over the MIDI so we can play it all together here. That's our pattern here, and we're playing the sound with the collision instrument here. coming with Ableton. Bit of delay to the sides and a bit of sidechain compression after that, playing it together. And I'm skipping over to the synths group quickly, where we have a glass layer, and this one goes well together with that bell marimba. So same pattern, you're basically playing this pattern here, 2 bars. That's the first bar. And da-dum-bum is the second bar. And now repeats. So this one is playing the higher frequency information here with this glass lid noise that comes with Serum in the attack miss, and effects, delay and reverb applied on top of the sound. This is our envelope, and filter cutoff is being controlled by the first envelope, as you can see here, MG low pass 12 filter, and then we're rolling off some low end. Quickly check the tuning. Slight saturation, sidechain compression, and you're good to go. And then you already have this ringy groove going on. And now another key element in Afro House is always these mono 1 synth plucks. Here it's 16th notes. We just skip the first one and then we copy over, and we are again in G sharp. Saw and triangle, basic mini, and this one is set to unison 4 voices here, but very simple. And then bit of detuning on top of the sound, and then make sure you have a short decay time here on the envelope, and envelope 2 is just slightly moving here. Let's take a look at the Plucks saw one here as well, another synth. See, this one is playing the same pattern. I should have started with that one because that one goes well with the glass layer and with the bells here. There's your groove. And again, we have just a saw wave here with 2 voices and very short envelope here, very short decay time. And this together with our bass and kicks. And you see we are panning this one a bit to the left, so we have the other elements in the middle, this one here, and then these have such a distinctive room already. We don't have to pan them around here in the moment. And now let's take a look at the pianos. So I'm copying that over, play it. So what's going on here? Let's zoom in a bit and take a look at the progression. I'm actually going to the upper part of it so we can see it very easily if we just focus on, let's say, these 3 chords here. We have, what's that? That's an E. 3 semitones in between is a major third, followed by a minor third, which is 2 semitones in between these two notes. So that's a major chord. E major, E is the root here of this chord. And then we are playing the 7th on top with D sharp. And that's another major third of difference or distance between B and D sharp. So it's an E major 7th chord. And if we go down, we have a bit more voiced elements down here, but our root is E1. And then we're like, I could also take this G down to an octave lower, and you would see the E major chord down here. And then we're putting in the octaves, but we don't want all this information too low in our piano chord here. It doesn't necessarily sound good, so we're bringing this up an octave. And everything together. So we have a rich frequency spectrum of sounds. Because we're not using that many elements in this style, the piano gets to occupy a couple of octaves in our frequency spectrum. So repeating. I'm skipping this a bit. Let's look at the simplified chord progression first. So the next one is F sharp. F is the root down here. And then we are playing the octave. And C is, or C sharp here is the fifth. And A sharp, if I'm bringing this down, we can see this is F major third, minor third, so that's an F major chord. Sounds like the start of a Christmas carol, if you play it that way. And it's voiced up an octave, but this is an F major chord, F sharp major, sorry. And then we're just holding the D sharp here in the upper part of the chord for stability in the chord progression, which is nice because we can play that here as well. And the last chord is our G sharp. Nice one. So what's going on here? G sharp is our root. Let's actually look at the chord an octave higher. It's easier to see here. It's a minor chord, G sharp, followed by a minor third, 2 semitones in between, and then we're playing B, and then a major third, 3 semitones in between, we're playing D sharp. So has this minor quality to it. And then we're just playing a B an octave higher, and we're playing D sharp an octave higher. So these two notes just repeat up here. And D also gets voiced down to here, and G sharp gets voiced down to here. So that's just a simple G minor chord. G sharp minor. Let's play it all together. And then we're going back into our E major 7th chord here. So that's a fairly straightforward chord progression with these slight passing chords here in between. And then towards the end, we're just playing a D sharp minor chord to sort of transition back into E. And that's our simplified chord progression. And for the style, for the Afro House style, now it's not that you're playing the simplified chord progression throughout your track. This genre is kind of defined by you acting like a genuine piano player who's sort of alternating the progression over time, always playing something else on top. So it keeps moving. It doesn't sound too repetitive in a sense. And that's where you can see you playing octaves higher here, some higher notes up there, and then you go down a bit, and then you miss out on those higher notes for a bit, just to keep it interesting. We will have a full playback of this entire track at the end of the video where you can listen closely into that. Okay, and if we go back and we have to sort of say or define what key are we in at the end of the day? Are we now in G sharp minor? Is that the key of the track? Now you could argue it is, because in general with these mono plucks you're playing either the root, which is G sharp in this case, or you're playing the 5th. And it goes together well if you're in G sharp, because this is actually the root. You could also argue that the progression sort of has this Lydian feel to it, but in the context of everything, it appears to be more minor than a Lydian. Could be because it could be also E Lydian. But if it's E Lydian, that means that G sharp, what we are playing stable throughout the track in our one note plucks, would be the third. And that's rather unlikely. But if you feel like this is more Lydian or something, let me know in the comments. Would be interesting. I feel like with this one, it depends a bit on the context of the track. Okay, let's quickly copy in the other two piano elements that we are playing along here. We have this riff. And another riff on the other side of our panorama. An octave higher, so we get... Yeah, and we're using the grand piano element that ships with Ableton, but you can also use the Keyzone piano or the Labs piano or whatever you have installed on your system. And now we also have these synth swells here that are kind of nice in this style. They have, you can have these whoop sounds in Afro House that we had in the other video on my channel for Rufus Du Sol. But here it's more soft. This is our Savannah type feel with these swells. So basically we're getting an instance of Serum, we're getting saw waves and triangles. And then we are sort of shaping our envelope too to control the filter with a slower attack, 555 milliseconds and decay time of 1.5 seconds. So it's a bit late. Bit of distortion, reverb, delay, and the note, in this case, D sharp. Through some overdrive and then sidechain. Guess it's more noticeable here. But these swells are nice. They really help you get this more epic feel in there. And then we have the reverse variant on top. I'm actually skipping that one for now because we have to take a look at some of the percussive elements as well. For example, the rim shots. They really define the groove here. This step here is nice. So really makes it interesting. Bit of velocity down here to not have it too much in your face, but it's 4 bars and then in the last one you do a little bit of this skippy skip. Let's look at the other rim shots. The fast one here, what is this one doing? 2 last notes always. Really drives it forward here, and then a couple of fast percussive elements. Playing 16th notes here, and you can already hear the velocity. These are also samples from the Afro House start to finish samples in the Academy. Fast hat, also 16th notes. Velocities adjusted to be groovy. And then we added this closed hi-hat and cut off the lows and put some noise from the vocoder on top in this case. With noise activated dry wet to 16% here. And let's take a look at some more fast hi-hats here in the upper one. Auto panned left to right, same pattern again, 16th notes, and we played around with the velocities here as well. Okay, and then we are adding in a bunch of shakers to have this loose shaker groove element. Here, this one is really being panned from left to right. And then we have another one which is a bit more smooth. And more shakers up here. You always need to check if the groove works, if they groove nicely together. Works, they're not going against one another. Okay, and then we have the conga element that sort of introduces everything here. And this is kind of your fill pre-drop. So conga soft and conga high. This one is a bit lower. And we're playing this pattern, dot 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 dot, and then play around with the velocities as well. So filling it up, starting with the first one and then bringing in the second one to emphasize. And yeah, a bit of processing here with EQing and overdrive, drum bus applied. Depends a bit on the context of your track, how much you need here and how much is already working with the sample. But then sometimes you really need to sidechain it. You need to give it a bit of room and a bit of delay and a bit of auto panning. So to have it move around, and a bit of soft drive with the drum bus element here and a bit of overdrive. Oh yeah, these are really important here to carve it out. Okay, so there's your conga fill. And of course we need vocals. In this case, just this short aha hey vocal. With a long reverb tail behind it, kind of a nice atmo, nice mood, nice vibe. With 14 seconds of decay time, we're really sending this one into eternity, and then we are taking the tail of the reverb and compressing that so it doesn't disappear too fast. Because if I'm taking this off, the tail is gone sooner, and I want the vocal a bit quieter, but the tail a bit louder. So this part a bit quieter, this part a bit louder. That's what this compressor is doing here. And then we are sidechaining the whole thing to the beat. And in this drop part, we put in these vocal shorts below. So it's just always on the first beat. Just subtle in the background, not too upfront. And yeah, these I would say are the key elements to sort of get this style of the Antdot MAZ style right. It's fairly straightforward, but it really depends on, do you have a nice chord progression? Do you have the groove down? Do you have good elements for your groove? We haven't even talked about all of these hi-hats here, but I would say these are more classic and, you know, not essential. Of course, they help because they provide the offbeat hi-hat elements, but the style itself is defined by a bunch of these elements that we've already talked about. Yeah, this one is also nice here. The conga in the background. Emphasis on the last offbeat. Which works nicely because the tom pattern also plays that beat. Yeah, so that's a cool element as well. And what else could we take a quick look at? We haven't looked at the pads, but they basically just follow the piano chord progression pattern. It's voiced differently. It sounds a bit like DJ Bobo from the 90s. And then we have pad high. Yeah, that's a simple, sorry, I forgot to look at the sound here. That's a simple saw wave detuned with a lot of voices. That's your pad sound here, your pad sound source. And if we take a look at what is this one doing? That's just a high note that sort of puts in this tension here on G sharp again on our root note. And then we are sort of playing around with these fuzzy grains that we are inputting here as well with our PML texturizer free rack. You can check the links in the description for the free rack attack pack. That's where you can get that. So let's wrap it up. The key elements, I would say, of this style are the tom groove with the kick. And then you combine it with the sustained bass line here. And then an octaved, nice piano pattern that covers a lot of octaves here. Needs a lot of variation over time. That's super important, otherwise your track will sound a bit boring. And then glassy belly parts on top. You can combine samples together with synthy elements. And a rim shot playing the same pattern, and even this pluck here, this one note pluck playing the same pattern. So that's a super strong line here already, and now you can put in shakers to have this more loose groove. Layer in some faster hi-hat and percussion elements to make it appear even faster, even if you're playing 120 BPM. maybe some synth swells in there as well. Slightly overdriven, so they sound a bit like a herd of elephants in the desert. And then some vibey vocals, if you have any. Yeah, and I would say these are the key ingredients. Now we have a whole bunch of elements here in our effects group, but I'm going to skip them here for this video. We've probably talked about these types of setups in a bunch of videos before already. That's basically what we're working with. This one here sounds interesting. That's a nice shaker sample. And we're throwing like tons of delay, repitched ping pong with 1-1, feedback 74% on top of it, and even adding some vocoder noise. Sounds like this rattle type thing. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this little walkthrough. Feel free to check the links in the description for the complete Afro House Start to Finish Academy, brand new. It's also part of the Everything Bundle, Everything Collector's Edition, Everything Year Edition 2024 with all the releases of 2024. You can also check the links in the description for more Afro House Sound Packs, sample packs and stuff like that. Also feel free to check the links in the description for the free Rack Attack pack. Download on our website, and I talk to you again soon, and let's have a playback of the entire track.